Welcome to Harm's Way's Captain's Chronicles. Okay, so I'm going to choose an American campaign, and I want this to be late in the war, so I'm going to pick January in 1944. January 16th, 1944, we're starting at Midway. So to change our settings, we'll go up to the radio on the shelf here and click on that and go to gameplay settings. I find this is the way to permanently make the changes. If you do it outside the main menu, they keep changing on you and it doesn't stick. I prefer to have high level of realism. However, I have spent many campaigns for the past few years, and so I've done manual targeting and do no longer feel I need to maintain my lieutenant status. I like to be promoted now to captain and let somebody else do that task. So for this campaign, I am going with the auto targeting. Midway Island is a good fuel depot and starting point. It's way out west of Hawaii. And click on the waypoint tool. Give myself a safe passage out, away from the island and away from the other ships that may be nearby. One of the things I like to do is get to know my crew, at least my officers, a little bit, and helps me immerse a little bit into the captain's role on my boat. And strangely enough, once you get to know your crew, you can pretty much tell what time of day is based on who's working shift. Now, looking at the crew screen, you can see there are 3 shifts. First shift would be 12 midnight, then 4-hour shift, then the second shift would start at 4 a.m., and the third shift would be 8 a.m. Now, each crew member works 2 shifts a day, so it's always 12 and 12, 4 and 4, and 8 and 8, depending on which shift you're on. And you can tell it's automatic targeting because you get the little yellow diamond there when you target a ship. And when you spin your scope into view, you'll notice once the little yellow diamond or green diamond, depending on how good the solution is, comes up, you can see the name of the ship, its distance, and its speed. And that's your crew, all the information to go into the TDC. Going down below, into the conning tower, seeing the crew members there up at the radar station, and then going further down. You see there's no plainsmen right there. They're up on watch right now on the bridge. And we can head over to our desk.
Yes, sir.
This is the desk I like to command from. I have a clock here telling me what time of day it is. Here I got my 2 gauges for depth gauges of different scales. We got a fuel gauge, and then we have our CO2, and bottom left we have battery, and then bottom right we have compressed air. By selecting crew members on the crew screen, we can learn about their skills, their abilities. This is the first time most of these guys have been out, which ends up that you have to do a lot of the work for them because they just don't have the experience to let you know in a timely manner. Eventually they get better skilled at that. But you can look at their current skill levels. And what I like to look at is I like to look at their sensory, because that tells you how good they are on spotting ships. So I may move some of the crewmen around based on how well they're graded on sensory. So we're going to slow our ship down a little bit. 10 knots is the most efficient speed for traveling on fuel economy. This is the helmsman station. There's no helmsman right there at the moment. He's normally up in the conning tower. as we will notice when we get up there later. So charting our way from Midway out to our destination, according to the orders were given us, we can see the yellow star with the flag in it. That is our destination. So I elect not to use the waypoint tool because that'll automatically take you where you want to go. This is up to you. I kind of like to use the map and chart it myself, get a hold of the compass and determine my course, and then I can go ahead and command my plainsman to take us to that course. And we're back out on our patrol, and we go with the time compression, and it's going to take quite a few days. So we go into our toolkit here for charting. Give us an area of about 150 nautical miles to let us know what our station, and then looking at the charted course, I see that it's like 2,600 nautical miles, and since it's now January 17th, we can do 240 nautical miles a day. Things go well, and in 10 days, somewhere around January 27th, we should be on station. If we hold down the control key and right-click on the mouse, that allows our navigator to put the sub right dead center or wherever your mouse is pointed on the chart. And then you can zoom in, grab your tool, and mark the spot. Once you do that, you can zoom out and see how close you are to your course line that was charted. And you may drift off a little bit, but that's fine. We'll just continue on this course. I do not have an icon for the sub unless I zoom all the way down into the sub itself. And I only do that when the weather's nice and I'm able to get my navigator to give me a position. But here we are now at January 26th, 1944. I should be only a day away from station, so I'm going to go ahead and rechart and do a course correction at this point. And that will put me on station hopefully within the next day. This sub, of course, being late in the war, is equipped with radar, air search radar, as well as open ocean for searching for ships. But in the next day or so, as we come close to station, we have to keep an eye out for airplanes. And of course, once that happens, we may have to dive on occasion in order to stay out of sight. So we're going to replot our course and see how far we're out from station. It looks like we only have 200 or 300 more nautical miles.
Yes, sir. New course 27. New course 271 degrees.
Here we are on January 27th. Let's determine where we're at. Plot our position on the chart. And indeed, we're only a few hours away from station. Just to make sure that I'm ready and the crew is ready for airplane sightings, we'll do a drill and go into a crash dive.
Yes, sir. Crash dive! Emergency dive! Emergency dive! Dive! I'm negative. Give me a 25-degree angle on the bow plane.
Main induction indicates shut.
Aye. All hatches indicate closed. All vents indicate...
Bring my guys down from watch and put them back into the control tower, into their normal duties. Have to get the plainsmen there in order to do the dive, and
Current depth 100.
once we get down, we can do a sonar check. Now that we've performed our sonar check, we'll go ahead and resurface. We're done with our drill and get back on course to get to station in the next 10 hours, hopefully. And of course, go back and put our watch out.
Ahead to third.
Before surfacing. Common practice would be to stop off and at periscope depth, take a look around, and also bring it on up to radar depth and take a look through the surface radar and get the air search radar, give us a glimpse of what's out there before we break water.
Yes, sir. Surface the boat.
Prepare to surface. Prepare to surface. Be ready on all 4 engines. Stand by to charge batteries.
Give me some rise on the planes. Lowering main ballast.
Now moving our planesmen back into the main deck, and usually that third guy from the right in the control, it has a real high ranking in sensory, which makes him a good ship spotter and has abilities that are good enough, sometimes even better than the lieutenant in the conning tower. So a lot of times now I've kind of changed my strategy and I leave off the 3 guys in the conning tower in there, the sonar, radar, and the officer. Now it doesn't take long, once you're close to the station, that you will be spotting airplanes and have to dive a lot. This will greatly change how long it takes you to get from place to place. Here we are on January 27th, and we're in station. And I'm plotting a course down to Iwo, hoping some shift traffic is going in and out of the harbor there.
Current depth.
You may find that you have to remain submerged mostly during the day and do your traveling at night on the surface. So while we're below, I keep an eye on my gauges, make sure the CO2 levels are okay, the battery charge is still good. A lot of times in the morning or during the day, I will pop up and get some fresh air, charge my batteries a little bit before I have to go down below or get chased down by an airplane. I had discovered on sonar a ship in the distance and had turned my ship right to that bearing, so now we see that they're aiming right for it and heading that way.
Yes, sir. Surface the boat.
Once we're able to surface, we can start chasing down the enemy ship and use our radar to keep us on course and determine which direction he is headed.
Two. New course. Two.
Indeed, we are finding that the ship is close to the harbor.
Yes,
You
sir.
can see the lighthouse
Yes,
here
sir. Yes,
as
sir.
we approach the enemy target. It's getting all the crew up and tripling our efforts on each of the tasks. Now, I highly recommend that you do learn how to do manually targeting. It will give you a good appreciation for what the crew is doing when you have auto-targeting on.
Yes, sir. Periscope depth.
Now, the officers have determined the target's position and speed and also identified it as a gunboat. They've come up with a good solution, but it's heading right for me, bow to bow. So the best thing to do here would be, I wanted to do a surface attack, but the best option here now is to go submerged. Setting up the target, we will open up the torpedo doors and set their torpedoes to contact influence and for fast speed.
Depth 6-0.
You always want to get a good look at the flag and identify that it is indeed an enemy target before you fire torpedoes. The enemy target has turned its course. Looks like it's doing a search pattern. And the solution isn't as good as what it was now that it's turned course. Our solution has changed. And it is a perfect setup now for my bow perpendicular to its broad-on-side shot, and I will go ahead and take this shot, even though the solution isn't ideal at the moment. And I'll do 2 torpedoes, hoping one will find the target.
Firing tube 1. Torpedo in the water. Firing tube 2. Torpedo in the water. Torpedo impact.
It's a good idea to stay below, because they're still able to fire weapons upon your sub and even do damage. So I usually wait till I see the ship go under before I surface.
Torpedo missed, sir. Tube 1 ready, sir.
Usually it's a good time to send a message back to let them know you have arrived on station, and also after sinking the ship. If it's an opportune time, I'll surface and send the message out. So my new orders came in, and I'm back up into the southwest portion of Japan. Area 7 actually. And I'm thinking about going into this bay, and the water's very thin, so I decided to come back out when I came across this sonar reading, and thought if I wait for evening and I don't have to submerge, I'll go ahead and head into the thin water and see if I can take out some ships while even docked in the harbor. As it turns out, I'm running into a lot of fishing vessels, and radar's picking up ships actually all over the place. I gotta be careful, even though I'm doing a surface attack over thin water. The moon is out. It's not full moon for a few days, but it's getting there. So I'm taking a peek into the harbor now, and certainly there is plenty of ships to be had, but I'm setting out a long range of 3,000 yards and firing my torpedoes slow.
Firing tube 3.
Hoping to get better accuracy. And as you can see, I'm hitting several ships now. That one there, I think it blasted along the wall and protected the ship. I'm going to have to move my ship around a little bit and see if I can get a better angle on it and not hit the wall. So as you can see, I got a couple ships burning,
Torpedo impact.
some more torpedoes going out, and I'm still hitting the wall.
Firing tube 1-0. Torpedo in the water.
Creeping to get better angles. This one
Torpedo impact.
looks like I got a good shot at. Ooh, yes. And
Firing
that
tube
one's
9.
going down. And back to this one I'm having trouble with.
Torpedo impact.
I'm not sure about that one. I think I still hit the wall on the other side. And so I decided I better get out of there. They sent some flares up and I wasn't sure
Torpedo impact.
what to think. But I'm back out into the Bay Area now. Still thin water, still night. And I finally run across the merchant out moving around and targeted him and took another one out. So I'm having a grand night now, sinking ships, and taking down a lot of tonnage. A gunboat I come across, and I didn't want to waste torpedoes on it, so I started firing my cannons off, but put it on flames, but he started shooting back, so I thought I'd better just leave him alone and get out of there. It was getting towards morning, and I thought I'd better get out of that thin water and get out into open ocean. And I was able to sneak out, submerge a little bit, and get some rest, get my crew back in off the battle stations, get them rested up. And now looking to see what my next course of action should be. I sent out the good report from the night before, and they're sending me back to Arizima area, and I'm heading back south again. See what I can find there. After several days of patrolling south off of Arizima, I didn't come up with any ships at all. After a certain amount of time, they sent me right back up to Japan, and I'm trying to look into another harbor now, and I'm coming across ships everywhere again. After 20 minutes, I took another bearing, and then after another 20 minutes, took my third bearing, and you can see the three lines. I'm just going to draw a line to intersect the three. It doesn't matter right now. I'd use trigonometry to determine the proper course. So using the assumption that the ship would be traveling at the same speed, we would take the distance it traveled between the first two bearing marks after 20 minutes, and then measure that and do a parallel line from the first bearing and intersect those two. Now I can intersect that line with the third bearing mark. So the parallel line intersects with the third bearing mark, and then draw a course between the two X's. And then set my compass up and decide it's now moving on a course of 160. So now I know that's the heading. Using the same chart, I can continue on to determine the range now that I know the course and heading is 160. Using the same assumptions, the ship will be traveling at the same distance over the course of 20 minutes. I'll measure the original distance on the now known course line from the first 20 minutes, and then do a predictive line from the last bearing to the next 20 minutes when that happens. So now I'll mark that bearing and then move my sub to a different location. And let's just assume that the sub has moved from that point over to this point for the sake of demonstration here. And after the 20 minutes are up, I know it should be along that predictive line, and I'll take the actual bearing from the new location and triangulate and that will give me exactly where it is located, and from there I can determine its range. I really wanted to get to this ship and find it before the sun rose, and I did get one torpedo in, but now I'm in danger of being spotted by any destroyers in the area. And as you can see, the merchant ship, though, is lifting and taking on water. But off to the distance, I got a radar reading of the destroyer, and there it is. This thing is going down, though, the merchant ship, so maybe I can get out of here. So as you can see now, the enemy is quite annoyed with me and has several destroyers and gunboats out looking for me. I went into silent running. I'm going to take my scope down and go deep and head out the other direction. Came up that evening after being submerged for the day and came across some more ships. Now you can use the TDC. All the information the officers are putting in there, they're also telling you, and then plotting that information on your chart. You know, knowing the bearing and the range, and also the course. You can then use the nomograph on the side, determine where your ship would be going at 5 knots, and then have an intercept course plotted on the chart, which is 90 degrees perpendicular to the target course. So naturally, we want to intercept its course prior to its arrival so we can quietly sit and wait for it to come across our bow and take nice, easy broadside shots.
Torpedo impact! Merchant, bearing, 9, closing!
Here I have 2 torpedoes left and another merchant ship coming through.
Merchant, bearing, 8, closing!
Use the torpedo data computer with the position keeper on, and that way once you have a good solution, the position keeper will continue to track that target even if you move your sub, or even if you submerge and put the periscope down. You can still fire your torpedoes sight unseen, and the position keeper will make sure that the torpedoes intercept the target correctly. So for those times you want to keep as stealth as possible, use the periscope as little as possible. The position keeper is very handy. It's also advantageous to turn the position keeper off, and then your torpedoes will intercept wherever your scope is pointing. So you can point your scope at the center of the ship, the bridge, a particular mast, and your torpedo would intercept where your scope is pointing. And there's the advantage of turning the position keeper off.
Torpedo impact!
As you can see, I used up all of my torpedoes, and it's just a matter now of finishing up my patrol here and sending a report back, and then getting the orders to come on back to Midway.